Hey everyone, it's More Layers once again. I'm Seth Mariano.
And I am Jordan Smith, and welcome to, I believe this is episode 32.
That sounds right,
Uh,
yeah.
okay,
Could be
so
wrong.
it's around that number. Anyway, so the way each episode works, if you're new, is Seth and I will have a predetermined subject matter that we'll talk about throughout a good chunk of the episode, answering some questions that have been laid out, seeing if we have similar thoughts or different thoughts or whatever. And once we're done there, we usually go into game time, which usually involves us quizzing each other or some other type of game if we can think of one. I personally like to make the questions I have a bit thematic to the subject matter, but it doesn't have to be. Then, when we're done with game time, the last two sections that we have are News That Bites, where we talk about something either in our personal lives or something that made the news that may have not been so good. And then we end on a high note by talking about News That Rocks, where we talk about something good that happened. Again, whether in our personal life or something that made the news. Then we'll usually wrap things up. And after we're done recording, he and I will decide on the subject matter for next week.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. And this time around, our big topic of the day is the one way I thought to put it into like a single term was pop culture callbacks, which in
Mhm.
parentheses, spoofs, parodies, references, samples, etc.
Basically, anything that brings you back to something else that already existed.
In a way, I guess that's a good way to put it. Yeah. And so I had a few questions. I had three questions I had written down here for both of us.
Mhm.
And the first one I wrote was, what are some things that make a good pop culture callback?
Now, there's definitely a bunch of ways you could answer this. The first thing I wrote down is that it pays a good, respectful homage to whatever it is calling back to. Now, sometimes it can be done to the point where you're kind of throwing some shade or whatever at whatever you're referencing, but most people, especially fans of the original content, will be much more appreciative if it pays homage in a respectful light.
Well, even if it's something I like, and if they say something that's, I guess, snarkily critical and but no, but if I can understand where it's coming from or understand and the reasoning, then it's okay with me, I think.
Sure.
Taken, I said one for one thing. If the project is primarily telling a story, the callback should have a connection. I don't think you want something just randomly in there or for the sake of just being a callback. I think it needs to be in some way relevant.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because I've seen, for example, in some superhero movies where it feels more like they just wanted to get the character into the movie without having a good reason for it. Instead, they want to be like, hey, look who's in the movie, even though they have no purpose for being there.
Yeah. Is there an example you can think of?
A good example, at least to me, would be when Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice came out. Because at first, many people were excited to see it because, Batman and Superman had never really been in a live action movie together. And then as more trailers came out, fans were starting to get a lot more frustrated because a lot more characters were being introduced, even though they didn't really have to be. There was just too much going on. And then when they showed a trailer with Doomsday, which is one of DC's biggest villains, fans got really upset because then at that point they're just trying to say, hey, they got this character into the movie, even though it wouldn't make sense for them to be there yet.
One thing I would probably say about that is, oftentimes when trailers come out, it's while the film is still in post-production or something. So there's a good chance from the advertising you're not going to get the full picture. So maybe don't judge it by the ad.
Well, that definitely can be true. Although there are some diehard comic book fans that if they see anything different in the films, then they're gonna not be too happy with it. And I won't go into too much detail, but Doomsday is supposed to be this creature that was experimented on over and over, going through these life-threatening scenarios until he could resist them all, becoming this uncontrollable monster. But in this movie, he was just the combination of a human and a Kryptonian's DNA, and that was it. He had no build up, no introduction, nothing. He was just there.
Just out of nowhere.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Another thing I said, which some of my later points on later questions will probably touch on later, is I said, and a good thing to have in a pop culture callback, points made about something in the source material. Or meaning by source material, I mean what's being referenced or called back to.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you say points made, what do you mean?
Like a sort of commentary on what makes this thing that they're referencing make sense, or what makes it not make sense, or what why this is goofy, why this is stupid, why this is cool, whatever.
Okay. I thought of an example. I don't know if this is exactly what you mean, but I thought of a scene. I forget where it's from, but there were these two guys in a, I want to say it's a movie, but I don't remember the title. They were walking outside in front of a building. The building explodes and they fall to the ground. And one of them just goes, "How are people in other movies just walk away from explosions like this?"
That's think that's something more like a self-referential joke than what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, but that's a pretty good self-referential joke, though.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. The next thing I wrote is that if it's something like, whether it be a show, a movie, or some other story, if it's something along the lines of a remake or a reboot, some things should be similar so that people that were fans of the original will still recognize it as something that's connected to the source material. But at the same time, you don't want to make it exactly the same.
I recently watched the new Spielberg West Side Story. I do think that the new version was superior because it was a more creative, cinematic take on it, but it didn't stray too far away, I don't think, from the original, and it didn't try too hard to modernize.
Yeah, that's one thing I remember when watching it in theaters that I really appreciated about it, because you could still recognize it as West Side Story, but you could still identify it as its own movie.
All right, and then kind of maybe similar to what I've already said, a fresh perspective on source material or on the source material is some one other thing that can make a good pop culture callback. Giving, expressing, a thought worth thinking about, how the referenced thing makes sense or doesn't, kind of like I've said before.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I wrote for that question centers around the idea of something being made that is based off a story with a lot of source material. And usually, if you, for example, make a movie based off of something that has a lot of source material, you want to throw in, at least I think so, you should often throw in a lot of subtle references to the source material that fans of the original content can catch on to. And video game movies, when they're done right, are highly capable of doing this. But unfortunately, most of the video game movies are notorious for not being very good. But some of the ones that have stood out are the Detective Pikachu film and the Sonic film, which a sequel is already airing in some places and will air in the US in about a week. I personally enjoyed the Sonic movie, which also had a ton of callbacks to the original games in the franchise. Like the scene alone where he's in the cave by himself, the street sign that he uses as a ping pong table has the name of level from one of his old games. His bandana when he's messing with nunchucks has the original logo that he's sitting in. When he's looking at a map of planets that he has been to or can still go to, one of them is the logo for his console, the Sega Saturn. And that's just to name a small handful.
All right. Yeah. And next, I put down the question of what are some specific pop culture callbacks that you have enjoyed the most?
Well, I already said the Sonic movie, but pretty much, at least for the first one I wrote down, was pretty much every Weird Al Yankovic song that I've listened to that was a parody of something else. Because for those who don't know who he is, Weird Al is known for making parodies of popular songs, and he actually goes the extra mile because typically when you make parodies, you don't technically need permission from the original creators to make a parody of their song. But Weird Al would make sure that he got the permission anyway.
And I think he usually credits the artist as, or the writers of the original songs as co-writers on his parodies.
Right.
Yeah. I also put down a couple of Weird Al Yankovic's like songs or parodies,
Mm-hmm.
specifically Tacky, which is a parody of Pharrell Williams' Happy, which yeah, you know, he this is probably evidence that he has a way of making new concepts work with the same music. And again, this is a pretty cheeky, classic cheeky Weird Al, but um, it's well written. And then Couch Potato, which was a parody of Eminem's "Lose Yourself," which is which mentions a bunch of popular TV culture from that era in which it was recorded, and it is so solidly in sync with the rhythm of the original lyrics, as far as I know. Of the way he weaves these lyrics together, I particularly enjoyed those two parodies.
All right.
Yeah.
The next thing I wrote was Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, this is a spoiler alert, but considering it's been over 3 months, like 3.5 months since the movie came out, then
And probably half the world has seen it in the theater by now.
right, then we feel a little bit better talking about it at this point. But that movie was a big callback to live action Spider-Man fans because of the previous two Spider-Man and their villains playing a dominant role in this film.
Yeah, they brought back Garfield, they brought back Maguire, they also brought back like villains from the previous two franchises, like Jamie Foxx's Electro and Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin and Alfred Molina's Doc Ock.
They at least referenced some of the other villains that weren't there. Like Maguire mentioned he fought an alien made of black goo, which was a reference to Venom. And I think Garfield briefly talked about his encounter with Rhino. So that was something. And supposedly, near the end of the film, when there's a big rift opening up showing a bunch of other villains from their universes, there might have been some callbacks to other villains that maybe weren't in previous films that fans would have loved to see. So that's a big one right there. But I'd have to pause it and go back and look.
Yeah. I also, interestingly enough, mentioned a Spider-Man thing. This is more like, I guess, an example of the sample type of callback, and it is a portion at the beginning of Spider-Man Far From Home, specifically the In Memoriam segment where they do the tribute to Iron Man, because by this point he's sacrificed himself at the end of Endgame,
right?
And they do this sort of tribute to him, kind of like an In Memoriam at a major award show, and they set it to Whitney Houston's "I Will Always Love You," which is something I did not expect to see or hear in a Marvel film. And I thought that was interesting, and in a way, it probably helped set the mood, and it was probably one of my favorite parts of at least the Tom Holland series.
Well, sure, and it was definitely a nice homage, because I mean, Endgame kind of did that at the end of the film, but they didn't just move on from it like it never happened. They still showed the impact it had on characters after that movie ended.
So not doing something like that probably would have been like dismissive of the significance of what Iron Man did, and you'd want to show more respect than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then the next one I wrote was, and I've talked about this game briefly before, but Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. And in a way, it was paying homage to not only the entire history of its own franchise in one game, but the franchises of all the characters that were involved. Because what they did for this particular game is they brought back every single character that has ever been in a Smash Brothers game as a fighter, as well as adding in some new ones, and each one would get its own stage, some of its own soundtrack, as well as a bunch of other things that called back to their original series. Now, I don't know if they'll ever do anything that big ever again, but just the fact that they did something so extravagant for so many series, it was pretty much one big callback.
So like the whole universe, past and present, coming together.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, hey, if you're a fan of this, we took note of it, and this is how we're paying our respect to it.
And then I put down a couple of videos made by a couple of short sketch videos made by the comedy team College Humor, and they both take a lot of inspiration from well-known movies. One of them was Website Story, which parodied the earlier film of West Side Story, right, and made it sort of like a short film all about finding love online. And they did like quick like less than minute or about minute long parodies of a few of the numbers in the musical and movie, and there was some pretty good recreation of the sets, so it felt like kind of like you were watching the real thing, but at least in the back of your mind you knew this was all comedy, and it was not exactly the same story, but it seemed to be kind of a good-natured callback nonetheless.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in forever, but I actually remember watching it years ago. We were all sitting around watching the video, and we were laughing at one particular song. I want to say it was when the guy and the girl were singing up on the fire escape or whatever they were standing on.
The parody of Tonight.
Yeah, I think so. Because again, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember all of us laughing when they were doing that particular song.
Yeah, it feels nerdy compared to the real thing, but
Well, I think that was part of the humor.
it's harmless. It's harmless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the other one, the other college humor one I said was The Matrix runs on Windows, which, as you may have guessed, parodies The Matrix.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's so uncannily recreated what the movie itself looked like, and even used the whole Matrix concept and to cleverly illustrate like problems people encounter, or at least talk about encountering, with PC or Microsoft Windows system computers.
Sure.
Yeah. So I like that.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll have to look at that one because I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah.
And
then
I had two more.
Go ahead.
One being Sonic Generations, which was a game that came out that celebrated the 20th anniversary of Sonic. And the reason I bring up this particular game is because the whole idea of the game was him traversing through a bunch of fan favorite levels from previous games to kind of celebrate his whole history. Like they brought back some of the old stuff, some of the new stuff, and some of the stuff in between, all while referencing different characters that were involved during that time, or different boss fights or anything like that. And they even brought back the original version of Sonic in the classic games to encounter his modern self.
Okay.
And then the last one was the Lego Batman movie. And I bring this movie up because there was a brief scene where Batman and Alfred were talking, and Alfred briefly referenced all the other live action films that Batman was in, and they showed a brief shot of each one in Lego form. So they had Batman v Superman, where they were charging each other as Legos, and they went back all the way to the beginning. And when they got to the Adam West movie, he was just like, and there was also that weird one from 1966.
Yeah, I feel kind of like the original Lego movie had a little callback here and there, like whether it was like parodying a specific genre or generic film cliche, or even some specific popular culture, though I can't really think of an example. I feel like it kind of did the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that wasn't on my list, though. I also said I talked a little bit about this guy a bunch of episodes ago, Golden Tusk, who's a YouTube comedy singer, I guess you could say, and he's done a bunch of videos where he has pretty much like recreated visuals or visual gags from famous films, and created sort of music videos where it's famous scores from those films with lyrics that go perfectly with the melody. And
all right. And you say this guy is on YouTube?
Yep.
All right, so Golden Tusk, I'll remember that.
Yeah. Then I said the one last thing I said for that one is not exactly the commercial as a whole, but the end of it. I think it was maybe during last year's Super Bowl, the Tide commercial with the shirt with an animated face of Jason Alexander on it.
Okay.
Yeah. And I take them because throughout the commercial they play the Greatest American Hero theme, which if you know your Seinfeld, that was parodied in a famous Seinfeld scene focused on George. And then at the end, Jason Alexander actually shows up in his car and says, That's my face. You can't use that. And so, like, the moment he showed up in the car, like, my mind pretty much went back to that famous scene that I've seen from Seinfeld.
All right. I haven't seen a lot of Seinfeld, but I might try to find at least that moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's on TBS all the time, and like you could probably like stream the show on Crackle or probably Peacock too now.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, and then I just have one last question, and it's what are some callbacks you might like to see in the future?
Yeah, I had a couple of these, and the first of the two would be like, I'd love to see a documentary of sorts that goes through Weird Al's entire career. And at the same time, I could definitely see it, like the whole thing somehow being a parody of how most documentaries work. Like every once in a while, Weird Al breaks the fourth wall by addressing the audience directly in the middle of a segment or something along that line. And I feel like it could provide a very comedic side to what usually is a very drawn out, dramatic style story.
Well, I think I've heard of something like sort of, I guess, semi autobiographical film that's been in development about Weird Al, sort of, and I don't know if it's like uh, I guess it's meant to be some sort of goofy comedic take, and I think they may have gotten Radcliffe to play Yankovic.
Like Daniel Radcliffe?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. I don't quite understand what the approach is or what the project is supposed to be about, but it sounds like they're doing something kind of like a biographical thing.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll keep an eye out for that.
yeah, yeah. This is more of a general idea because I think pretty much since the explosion of the internet, you've heard or seen a lot of people complain about implications of misogyny in classic Disney's, about Disney princesses being naive and the themes in their films being kind of syrupy and sappy and and naive, and so uh, I feel like I would kind of like to see some sort of maybe short film or sketch or something that kind of hyperbolically exaggerates those kind of views. And I think maybe as a result, people would see how ridiculous the accusations are, or at least, or maybe they would be confirmed or something.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
And then, yeah.
I was about to say, I kind of think they somewhat did that with one particular line in Frozen where Elsa says something like, "You can't marry a man you just met," which is pretty much what half of the Disney princesses did.
And Enchanted pretty much, I think, on purpose went cheeky on that one.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I haven't seen it all the way through. I plan on it though, and then I guess Enchanted is just now getting a sequel, so we'll see how they do with that.
Yeah. And I think like I didn't actually see the film, but I saw a little advertising here and there for Ralph Breaks the Internet, and there was that famous scene that they highlighted in the advertising with those Disney princesses, and one of them said, "Do people assume all your problems got solved because a big strong man showed up?" And that was kind of, I don't know what they were going for with that, just to like a self awareness humor or trying to shut people up, or I don't know what.
It might have been a combination of both, because really a bunch of them were saved or rescued by a big strong man, and then It can also be a subtle way of telling fans, yes, we are aware that a lot of our stories are like this, but hey, we find it hilarious.
Yeah,
Although,
we can laugh at ourselves.
oh, yeah, absolutely. And then the one other one I wrote, did you ever see Frozen 2?
No, but I did see the first one.
Okay, there's a scene in the second one where Olaf comedically recaps the events of the first movie to this group of people that they meet, and a lot of people loved it and then started saying, and I can agree with them, that they and myself would love Olaf to have his own little miniseries where he does the same thing with a bunch of other Disney movies.
Actually, there is that already on Disney Plus. Olaf has this whole mini series where he pretty much acts out in like a minute or two or so a bunch of Disney classics.
Huh. I was not aware. Does it have a name?
Um, it's got to have a title, right? I mean, I have seen it, but I forget what the title of it is, though.
Okay, I'll have to look into this because I was not aware that was already a thing.
All right, and one thing I might like to see in the future, I think, is an updated version of Weird Al's Couch Potato. I think the
Mhm.
main reason for that because that song was written, that parody was written like in the early 2000s, and a lot of the programs and whatever mentioned in those lyrics, those shows are pretty much long gone by now,
Okay.
and so I would think it would be interesting, uh, maybe to see it be him, maybe modernize it, or maybe incorporate, you know, talk about streaming and talk about some of the shows that are currently on. I think that might be interesting.
All right. And then would you give it a separate name or just be like, oh, this is Couch Potato 2?
I would probably maybe retitle it Couch Potato, whatever the release year is, like what Elton John did with Candle in the Wind. He called it Candle in the
Okay.
Wind 1997 when he rewrote it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd probably do that.
That could actually work. I'd actually love to
Yeah,
see him do that.
yeah. All right. And that's all I've got for the questions. And
Mhm.
so now I guess we'll move on to our game time.
Yep.
And if you've got something, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I've got a small list of questions, not a lot, but
Okay.
like about five or six. First one being, what was Weird Al's song "Amish Paradise" a parody of?
Gangsta's Paradise by Coolio.
Yep. I think that was one of the other first ones I of his that I listened to as well. And it was actually kind of funny. Um, Now this next one we've already talked about, so this ought to be pretty easy. But which Disney movie featured a scene with most of the Disney's princesses in one room, giving a callback to all of their stories?
Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, we're already talking about this. He's gonna know it. Um,
It's all right.
Now, next one is which recent or relatively recent superhero movie, which will have at least two eventual sequels, one of them coming out at the end of this year, I believe, features a ton of different versions of the same superhero paying homage to each of their stories.
Oh. So is this a recent superhero film?
In the last 2 or 3 years, I think.
Oh man.
And it's getting a sequel at the end of this year.
Like, mm, is it a Batman film?
It's a Marvel hero.
Marvel. Okay. Superman.
That's DC.
Right. Um. Ooh. Okay. Marvel hero. Hmm. Probably not Iron Man because he's kind of dead now.
Well, I will also say this. It was a recent Marvel film, but it was animated and it was not part of the MCU.
Hmm. Is this another Spider-Verse film?
It was the Spider-Verse film.
Yeah. All right. So it's a follow-up to Enter into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, there are. Well, Spider-Verse had a bunch of different versions of Spider-Man, and each one got at least a little bit of a summary of how they got created. And we do know that there's at least 2 more movies coming because the next one was known as Across the Spider-Verse Part 1.
Okay.
Then the last one I wrote is which live-action Batman actor will soon be reprising his role, making many fans of his original performances happy.
Mm. Ooh. Well, I know a bunch of Batman actor names, so this one might be tough. Let's see. Might have to go through all of them. Hmm. I think just because of his relative popularity, or what seems to be his relative popularity, I'll first say Christian Bale.
It is not Christian Bale.
Okay. Um, mm, Val Kilmer.
No, it wasn't him. Unfortunately, I don't think Val Kilmer will be doing much acting anymore because I think at one point he got some sort of throat cancer, so he can even barely speak anymore.
Michael Keaton.
There you go.
Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't.
he's good. I've seen him in a few movies, and he does good.
Yeah, he was in the first 2 live action ones, and then it was announced a little while ago that he would be reprising his role as Batman in. It was either a Flash movie or appearing in the Flash TV show. One of the two.
Yeah. He's one of those actors whom I think I can easily see doing a good hero and a good villain.
Which
And
he has done.
because he has done both. Yeah, yeah. I was kind of going to say that he has done. He's played Ray Kroc. He's played Batman, and well, I haven't seen that one. He's played some rather good-natured guys, I think, and he does good.
Yeah, and he played Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming,
Right.
which was a big Marvel villain. So, yeah, he can do good and evil.
Yeah, so that was all you had. Okay,
Mhm.
so yeah, well, for my little quiz, I pretty much wrote down a movie title that starts with each letter of the alphabet. I won't tell you what they are, and so this is gonna be kind of like alphabet game meets categories. So I'm gonna just let you try and come up with one yourself for each letter, and and basically for each one that wasn't duplicated, you'll get a point.
Okay, so I just have to name any movie that starts with that letter.
Hmm. Yeah, and preferably one that I secretly did not write.
Okay. Okay, so we're going all the way from A to Z.
Or in whatever order you want.
Well, I feel like just starting from the beginning and going to the end will make it easier for me to remember which ones I've already done.
Yeah, what works
So
for you?
let's see. Let's see. A movie title that starts with A. I don't know if I would say Avengers because it's technically the Avengers. Oh, it was a movie with Will Smith and his son. Hang on. After Earth.
All right.
So that's the one for A. For B, I could just say Batman, but that's probably too easy. Let's see. What's a good movie that starts with B? Oh, you know, for A, I could have also said Ace Ventura.
Sure.
So there's that. Let's see, a movie that starts with B. This is one of those things where, as I'm thinking about it, I'll struggle a little bit, but then after we're done, it's like, oh, I could have said this.
Yeah. Feel free to pass whenever you want.
All right. Well, for now, I'll say Batman, just so I have an answer. But if I think of anything else later, I'll come back to it. So there's that. For C, there's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. For D, let's see, Deadpool and Deadpool 2. For the letter E. Oh, for D, I could also say Dune. I guess for E, I could say Encanto. I haven't seen the movie, but it's something. Enchanted, that's another one. So that's 2. For F, Facing the Giants, which we talked about briefly in a previous episode not too long ago.
We did talk about that, yeah.
Yep. For G, there's definitely one. I just got to think of it. Oh, Grease, like the musical. So we're up to G. So H. Well, I would say Heroes, but that's a TV show, not a movie. And what's good about this is that the people listening or watching, they can think of a bunch of their own while I'm trying to think of one. So
Yeah,
they can
play
kind of
along with
partake in
us.
this. Absolutely. Happy Days is also a show. Harry Potter. Any of the movies.
Sure.
For I. Well, Into the Spider-Verse is part of the title, but it's not the start of the title, so that wouldn't count. I'm trying to think, were there any Disney movies that started with an I? Right, I'm struggling with that one, so I'll have to come back to it. J. I don't know if I should count this or not, because I thought of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which we have on DVD, thus kind of making it a movie, but I don't know if that really counts.
I don't know if there is a real movie of that one.
Right. Oh, Jack and Jill, that notorious movie that Adam Sandler did.
Okay.
For K, I can think of movie titles with a K in it, but ones that started with K. I know there's at least an animated movie of this. I don't know if there's a live action one as well or not, but I don't remember if it's called King and I or The King and I.
The King and I.
Darn it. All right, so I and K are currently ones I'm struggling with. L, there was an animated movie that my mom and I watched called Leap. So there's that. And I think this is part of the title, Lemony Snicket's Series of Unfortunate Events.
All right.
It's The Little Mermaid, not Little Mermaid, so that doesn't count.
Yeah, Leap is good.
Okay. So M. These movies are people either like or don't like, but the Maleficent live action films, Megamind, Matilda, both versions of Miracle on 34th Street. So that's a few. For N, there's Nightmare on Elm Street. And for M, you could also say Morbius, that Jared Leto movie that just came out.
And apparently hasn't been received well.
No, I've been looking at the reviews and it hasn't been performing all that great. I really want to see Jared Leto succeed in something. I just haven't seen a lot of projects that he's been in that have been taken well by the audience. For N, there's probably a bunch of these. Was L one of the ones I struggled? No, because I said Leap. It was I and K so far.
Yeah. I think. Did you already get an N?
I don't think so. I think I did.
Oh.
I was about to start saying something for N, and then I remembered Morbius. So, and of course for M, you could also say Mary Poppins because Julie Andrews did that with Dick Van Dyke. Trying to think of different actors and the movies they've done. I feel like N should be really easy. Come on, there's got to be one. Oh, I remember. I got one now. And this one was one of the lowest rated ones on Rotten Tomatoes for a little while. I don't know if it still is, but it's an animated movie called Norm of the North.
Oh yeah, I think Selena Gomez was in it.
Was she? I'd have to look at the filmography for that one.
I might have seen a trailer for that.
Okay. One for M, again, Madagascar. For O, there's Oz the Great and Powerful that had James Franco. There's Over the Hedge. There's a recent movie that Shyamalan did simply called Old. So that's a few. For the letter P, I want to say there was a Prince of Persia movie, but I'm not 100% certain on that. Well, it's The Princess Bride, not Princess Bride, so I can't do that. I'll definitely get this. I feel like I should be able to think of something, but I'll have to come back to that. And I think that brings us to I, K, and P. Q? Can't imagine there are that many movies that start with Q. There are characters called Quicksilver, but I don't think they would have ever gotten their own film yet. There's A Quiet Place, not just Quiet Place, so I can't do that. Not sure about that one. So I, K, P, and Q?
Yeah.
Okay, so I, K, P, and Q. For R. Oh, wait. For P, I could just say Peter Pan.
Yeah.
Because that was a Disney movie. For R. I think Johnny Depp played this character. It was like Rango.
Yeah. Animated film, sort of a Western adventure.
And despite it being animated, I think it was a little. There were some, not necessarily like 18 plus humor in there, but there was some stuff that kids might not get, or some things that they might not, or rather should not see, or something like that. It was a little more grown up.
Or do you think they would have comprehended it?
A good chunk of it, probably not, but I think there were still a handful of visuals that they would have been grossed out by, maybe. In any case, for S, Sonic the Hedgehog, a little easy. But I could also do. That's The Shining, not Shining. Oh, you know what? For I could say It. For K, there was an animated series as well as a live action film known as Kim Possible, and the animated version got a movie called Kim Possible, so the drama.
Right. I think it was like a Disney Channel original.
Right. Okay, so that takes out I and K right there. We were up to S. I didn't say anything for P yet, did I?
Oh, yeah, you did. Peter Pan.
Oh, true. Because another one I thought of just now was Psycho.
Yeah.
S.
Yeah, I think you said for S already.
Well, I did, but I figured since we'd already talked about it, and because of my well-known love for the Sonic franchise, I wasn't sure if that would have been fair to use, because it would have been a little too easy.
So you had something else in mind?
I'm trying to think of something. I know there was an animated horse movie called Spirit. So
Oh yeah, and recently I think they did like a Netflix series based on that.
I think so, yeah. Okay, so we're good there. For T, there's a lot of stuff that starts with the word the, so that blows it wide open. I don't know if I want to do that because, again, that might be too easy. Titanic.
All right.
One of the biggest ones out there. For you. Letter U. There was a live action film called Underdog, I believe, that called back to an animated series of the same name.
Yeah, it was based on some kind of cartoon. I don't know if it was based on a comic book or an animated show or what. Based on something.
Right. So there's that. For V, I want to say it was a movie, not a TV show, but it was like V for Vendetta.
Okay.
For W, Pixar film Wall-E.
Okay.
For X, the only thing I could probably think of anywhere in the near future, at least right now, is X-Men. Y. This one's a classic movie, and I think my mom watched it not too long ago, called Yours, Mine, and Ours.
The older one or the newer one?
Either or. Unless you were asking
Has she seen both of them?
I believe so, but I think the one she saw recently was the newer one. I think.
Yeah, that's the only version I've seen.
Okay. So that's what I'll say for Y. For Z, I mean, there's World War Z, but that's World War Z for W. But for Z, do I know of many movies that start with Z? See, there's some titles I can think of where the letter Z is prominent in there somewhere, like World War Z or Dragon Ball Z. I had it for a second. Wait. Zookeeper.
All right. So that leaves us with just Q to go.
Wow, just Q. Okay. Okay. Chances are, if there's a title that has a Q in it, it's going to be followed by a U. Maybe a movie title that starts with the word Queen, or I am struggling on that one.
You want to just quit now?
Sure.
All right. All right. And so I'll go ahead and reveal the answers that I put before the show.
Okay.
For A, I put Armageddon.
Oh, true. Didn't even think about that, obviously.
Yeah. All right. For B, Boyhood.
Don't know if I've heard of that one, but okay.
All right. For C, Castaway.
Oh, with Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
Okay.
For D, Django Unchained.
Django and...
It's with a I believe with a silent D.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
All right. For E, Ed Wood.
All right.
F, Fargo.
I think I've heard of that one.
Right. G, Galaxy Quest.
Oh, that was a movie. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. H, High Fidelity.
All right.
I Am Sam.
Okay, yeah. I've heard that title.
All right. J, Junebug.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
K, Kangaroo Jack.
Oh, yeah. I totally forgot about that movie.
All right. L, Looper.
All right.
All right. M, Moonstruck.
Okay, I have heard of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw it once in college in a script writing course that I took.
Okay.
Yeah. N, Now You See Me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. O, On the Waterfront, which is another film that I saw in that script writing class.
All right.
Right. P, Pixels.
Oh, yeah. That's like, oddly enough, one of the Adam Sandler movies I actually do like, but it's been a while since I've seen it, so I didn't think of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if a lot of other people liked it, but you did. Power to you.
Yeah. I enjoyed it for whatever reason, but hey, if I enjoyed it, I enjoyed it.
Q, Quiz Show.
Quiz show. That one I haven't heard of.
I believe I mentioned it in an earlier episode. We were talking about films based on true stories, maybe.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the one about the scandal of the game show 21 in the 50s, where Congress got involved.
Okay.
Yeah. R, Red Tails.
All right.
Yeah. S, Signs.
Okay, yeah.
T, Taken.
Yeah, I remember when we first started this game, Taken was one I thought of for later, but then I completely forgot.
Well, well, I think it worked out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. U, Unbreakable.
All right.
V, I also said V for Vendetta, so that cancels that one out.
Darn it.
Yeah. W, What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
All right.
Yeah. X, I said XXX State of the Union.
All right. And I feel like there was another movie. I think it might have been Vin Diesel or somebody that also was like XXX something, but I don't remember the rest of the title.
Yeah, I don't know. Y, Yentl.
Yentl?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Z, Zoom.
I was not aware there was a movie called Zoom. There was a kid show I watched by that name, but not a movie.
Yeah, completely different thing. It's something I think Tim Allen and Spencer Breslin were both in.
Okay.
Yeah, and so altogether, there, I got 26, you got 25. So that was a good game.
Would you say I got 24 though? Because I didn't have anything for Q, and then you got me on V for Vendetta.
Well, I guess you got 24, I got 25. Correction there.
All right, because we both said V for Vendetta. But either way, you beat me by one, but it was still pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. So now all that's left is our news portion, and of course, as always, we'll begin with the news that bites. So, what have you got?
What I've got is semi-personal, but in a way, it actually kind of applies to both of us. Uh, Many people, if they've been listening to us, they know Seth and I are part of a theater group called Artists Unlimited that allows those with disabilities to perform on stage. The only reason why I say News that Bites is because they do want to do a show this season, but COVID rules are keeping things up in the air as to what they want to do. Because last year, when we did Lion King, COVID was still very prominent. And they had to split the casts in half, and each half did the same show on separate days. Now, they don't want to do that again, but the possibility of any rule changes are keeping things up in the air as to whether or not they may have to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah, well, protocols have noticeably softened here in New York State, and so there's not that much requirement for masking or distancing, it seems, anymore, at least for now. But
Right.
but we're not quite out of the woods right now yet. We um, things could probably rev up again with new cases, maybe when it gets back to the next cold season. Well, no way to tell for sure, but it's possible. But I
It
guess
would,
we'll have to wait and see what happens.
right.
Yeah, yeah. And so I had one thing I thought that I thought was just ridiculous, and this was reported on Yahoo, and it's about a clue on in the final round of a recent episode of Jeopardy.
Hmm.
Like, basically, it said something about the clue was something about a famous musician at the age of like 90 something, uh, breaking some sort of record, and at least two contestants guessed Diana Ross, and then people. The crazy thing I think about it was people on the internet and went ballistic and like saying like, "You think she's that old?" Or I think I think they overreacted to it.
Yeah, it's not like they were trying to insult anybody necessarily. So it's like they just happened to not know that was the first person they thought of. And if more than one person said it, then their thought process may have been similar. And what people got to understand as well is that I'm assuming this was a Final Jeopardy thing.
Yes.
Okay, so what people got to understand is that they only have 30 seconds after hearing the clue to come up with a decent answer. So there's that pressure of time, whereas the people at home can have all the time in the world if they really wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like the people in the studio can just shut the host off like you at home can do for one thing.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah. Well, it is what it is, I guess. And what
Yeah.
about news that rocks? What have you got?
What I got is that in the coming weeks, a lot of my family will be visiting soon. And this will include my niece, who was born a few months ago, and I will finally be able to meet her for the first time.
Right. Yeah, and this new baby girl is the new daughter of Jordan's older brother and
Hmm.
his wife.
Yep.
Yep. I also have someone, a certain person in our family, whom I won't be specific on for the sake of privacy, but they will be here. They will be here in town next weekend. But although I've said that before, and that's not my thing that rocks for today. My news that rocks for today, even though that rocks too. Um, my thing for today that I wanted to highlight is next month for my 29th birthday. my folks are taking me to Lancaster, Pennsylvania to see a performance by the Sight and Sound Theater, which I've mentioned. I mentioned it in the episode on Christian movies, the Sight and Sound Theater.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a company. I think they have 2 locations in 2 states. They do like big, like 2 hour long musical live shows, stage shows based on biblical stories, and they have a production coming up inspired by the life story of David, and we are going to attend that in Lancaster as a little treat trip for my birthday coming up in late May.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I hope you guys have fun, seriously, because that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I have seen a couple of their shows like on our TV, and I saw one recently on Moses, and the effects that they did, those visual effects are beyond my understanding. They are amazing.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, if you ever get a chance maybe to like pay whatever the expensive cost is, make a donation and stream it on your smart TV or whatever, I think it's probably worth doing it at least once.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's all we got. And well, I guess we'll be wrapping this up, and I'll get this going in post-production hopefully tomorrow if I've got time. And in the meantime, enjoy all our episodes on YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor, and send us your comments and questions. Whatever you have to say, send it our way.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Any suggestions we'll take. Any constructive criticism we'll take into consideration. And if you really think something should be talked about on the show, please let us know.
Yes, please. All right. Until next time, we will be out, and thanks for streaming, and see you soon.
See you later, everyone.